Welcome into OutKick the show. I'm your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having a fantastic Tuesday wherever you may be across this great nation or around the world. Starting basically tomorrow, I will begin my travels around the world. I'm headed to Israel later in this week, and I will be there all of next week. So this will be, along with the fade, unless something bonkers happens tonight, I will not be back with you until December the 16th on OutKick the show, just so you know. Kelly will be doing a gambling special with you next week with a special guest. I am going to tape a gambling special with Kelly here shortly, right after we finish this show. But I will be in Israel. Lots to come from that trip. I cannot wait. I have never been to Israel before. We're doing Clay and Buck there. And I will be there all of next week. I'll also be on radio Wednesday and Thursday of this week, but traveling, got to get to New York, then I got to go to Israel. So just FYI, if you're wondering where is Clay, you can get it and follow me on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. We'll probably have some videos up from my trip to Israel. In the meantime, Prize Picks, best way to get in on all the sports action, over 30 states, including California, Florida, Georgia, Texas. Only real money daily fantasy platform, injury insurance as well, which means your lineups can stay in play even if somebody gets injured. If your player leaves in the first half, doesn't return, Prize Picks keeps your lineup live. Make your picks in under a minute, turn your sports opinions into real money. Get hooked up with great deals. If you download the app today, you get code OutKick. You get $50 instantly. That's code OutKick. Download Prize Picks. $50 instantly when you play $5. Prize Picks, run your game. Here is my game this week. Jahmyr Gibbs, more than 67.5 rushing yards. Patrick Mahomes, less than 261.5 passing yards. Jamison Williams, more than 50.5 receiving yards, and Sam Laporta, more than 34.5 receiving yards. So that is three different Detroit Lions players that I am taking for more. And then Patrick Mahomes, I am taking for less. If we are right, boom, 10-1 payout. Jahmyr Gibbs, more rushing yards. Jamison Williams, more passing yards. Sam Laporta, more receiving yards for both Jamison Williams and Sam Laporta. Patrick Mahomes, less. There is your Prize Picks play from me. 10-1 potential payout at prizepicks.com with code OutKick. You play $5, you get back $50. All right, let me give you the latest. Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, so what is that, like 4 hours-ish from now, the College Football Playoff Committee rankings will come down. And I have told you that, in my mind, there are two major questions outstanding. One is, who is potentially the 12th team going to be? And that is presuming that SMU beats Clemson and there is one 12th option available. If Clemson beats SMU, then I think both of those ACC teams are going to get in, and there will not be an available 12th spot. So if you are out there right now and you want to argue about the playoff, there are 4 definite teams in from the Big Ten: Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Indiana. That is my order for how I would rank them, by the way. In the SEC, Georgia, Texas, Tennessee. That is my order for how I would rank them. That is 7 total teams. Notre Dame is in at 11-1. That is 8 teams. The winner of Boise State UNLV is going to be in. That is 9 teams. The winner of Arizona State against Iowa State is going to be in. That is 10 teams. And I believe that as you run through all of that roster, certainly the ACC champion is going to be in, has to be in as well. That is 11 teams. So 11 spots are spoken for. The only question is, who's the 12th team going to be? And my analysis is, it is either going to be, if they win the game, Clemson and SMU as the 12th team in. Or if SMU wins, that is effectively Clemson is stealing a bid, If SMU wins, then there will be an open 12th team because Clemson will not be in. And then I think it would come down to Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss as the 3 plus South Carolina, okay? So if my analysis is accurate, here is the current live to make the college football playoff odds. You can actually bet on this. And I am looking at the odds legitimately as I speak to all of you. Alabama right now is minus 260 to make the college football playoff. No is a 2-1, okay? Other teams in the mix here, Miami right now, 8-1 to make the college football playoff. No is minus 1,800. SMU to make the playoff is now minus 280. No is plus 210. South Carolina is 9-1. Adam, I don't know if you can get a number. They have taken Ole Miss basically off the board, I believe. I looked earlier, and Ole Miss was 55-1. South Carolina is 9-1 to make the playoff. So what I said in my column on Sunday was I thought the decision would ultimately come down to Miami against Alabama. But it appears that Alabama, according to gamblers, has taken a lead. Now, I will point out last year, gamblers, the odds were really bad. And I ended up being correct. I said, Alabama's going to make this playoff. And a lot of people didn't believe me. A lot of people thought that even though Alabama won the SEC championship, that they were not going to get in. I said, no, Alabama's making this playoff over Florida State. Florida State fans have still not recovered from that. And I was right. And you could get Alabama, somebody go back and look, at a really good value because Florida State was an overwhelming favorite. My point on this is gambling markets can be wrong when it comes to analyzing playoff decisions because it's a relatively handful of people making this choice. And again, we will see their playoff rankings tonight, but that 12th battle, which is the 12th team, is going to get a lot of attention because basically there are 11 teams that we know or spots reserved that we know. For instance, we don't know if Arizona State or Iowa State is going to win the Big 12. But we know the Big 12 gets a playoff spot. And we don't know if Clemson or Miami fans, or SMU is going to win. But we know that the ACC gets a playoff spot. We don't know if Boise State or UNLV are going to win. But we know a non-Power 5 team gets a playoff. Right now, by the way, Ole Miss 200-1 to make the college football playoff, which is pretty crazy. That's Ole Miss to win the title overall. Obviously, they would have to make the college football playoff. Numbers a little bit lower. They were 55-1 earlier. So, again, there is a lot of belief that that all of this is going to turn into a huge cluster. I would argue for you that if SMU wins, that is true because there will be a 12th spot available. If Clemson wins, and Clemson's not that big of an underdog. In fact, I jotted this down earlier. Clemson right now, 2.5-point underdog. So, 55 times SMU wins, 45-ish times Clemson wins. Close to a coin flip. There's not going to be any debate at all. Because I think 11-2 SMU, even with a loss to Clemson, would get in above a 9-3 SEC team. That's what would turn into the battle, I think, because that would bump Miami out. I think Miami's best case is SMU wins, and then you argue, hey, Miami versus the SEC team, because clearly SMU is going to get in above Miami. So that is where we are in terms of the teams that get in. The thing that I'm actually most interested to see in the College Football Playoff Committee's rankings tonight is who is higher, Tennessee or Ohio State. Because I don't think there's any doubt personally that you're going to see the loser of Georgia, Texas, the loser of Penn State, Oregon, Notre Dame as 3 of the home playoff games. That is the 4 buys, and this is going to confuse people, are going to be the Big Ten champ, the SEC champ, ACC champ, probably, although craziness can happen. And then either Boise State is going to win and get a bye, or Boise State's going to lose and the Big 12 champ's going to get a bye, either Arizona State or Iowa State. Again, I'm surprised how many big college football fans don't understand that the top 4 seeds have to be conference champions. I think they got that totally wrong. I think the top 4 seeds should just be the top 4 teams, and you shouldn't be elevating people from way down below in the rankings and giving them buys. But I think that is going to actually end up surprising a lot of people. So that is my breakdown of where we are. But Tennessee versus Ohio State for the final home playoff game is going to be seismic. And that's actually the thing that I'm most interested in seeing in these rankings when they come out in about 4 hours and change. Is Tennessee higher than Ohio State? If so, Neyland would host a home playoff game. Ohio State would travel there. If Ohio State's higher than Tennessee, that would be the final home playoff game. Tennessee would travel to Columbus. I would be very surprised if that's not the breakdown in terms of how the overall seedings end up. And by the way, Tennessee, Ohio State is going to be 6-7, I think. That is the number 6 and the number 7 teams in some order, but they're going to get bumped down to the 8-9 slot because of the elevation of 2 conference championship teams that will be ranked below them. That is that breakdown. As it pertains the absolute latest. Record-setting numbers for Thanksgiving NFL games. Going back as far as you can, record numbers of viewers for the NFL on Thanksgiving. I don't know that the NFL has ever been more popular than it is right now. College football, I think also, is going to set all-time records. I haven't seen the numbers yet for Friday's games and Saturday's games. Sometimes these numbers are delayed for holiday weekend purposes. I don't know why that needs to happen. Is it really that difficult to compile what happens over a holiday weekend? But it's not out yet. I suspect, my prediction, I sent that up several days ago, is that more people will have watched college football on Friday and Saturday of this past week than have ever watched college football in the history of college football on television. I suspect it will mirror the huge numbers posted by the NFL for its Thanksgiving Day festivities. So those numbers huge across the board, triple header, NFL action, setting all-time records. You know who's not setting all-time records? MSNBC and CNN. Their actual audiences have tanked. In fact, MSNBC set a 20-year low in viewership for viewers aged 25 to 54 recently. They only had 38,000 viewers. That is, in the entire nation, basically one baseball stadium of 25 to 54-year-olds was watching MSNBC during their television programming primetime recently. Wow. This is not a business anymore. I saw stats. I was just talking about it on Clay and Buck. Fox News, for news viewership, has 73% of the audience now. MSNBC and CNN are fighting for the remaining 27%. Think about how wild that is. People are tuning into Fox News in record numbers, and they are abandoning CNN and MSNBC. Why? Here's my thesis. And maybe we can clip this and do a good job with it. I am a diehard fan of the Indiana Jones movies from the 1980s. I went to go see Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom when I was a little kid 8 times in the movie theater. Now, some of you out there that are around my age will remember the era when a movie might stay on at the movie theater for like 3 or 4 months. It wasn't like today where a big Hollywood hit comes out and it's on for a month at most, and then it's gone. A good Hollywood summer movie would stay on for months. I remember Indiana Jones, The Last Crusade, which I believe is the best of the Indiana Jones movies. It stayed on forever. And I mean, like literally it came out in early summer and it was still on in like August. It came out in May, like Memorial Day, and it was still on in September. That's how movies used to be back in the day. We had to go to movie theaters to see them. You know, streaming didn't exist. And a lot of us didn't even have VCRs. So if you wanted to go see a movie, you went and watched it in a theater. I didn't have a VCR when Indiana Jones Temple of Doom came out. So I went and watched 8 times. Now that I'm a grown man, I have taken my own kids and we have gone back and watched all the 1980s and 1990s era classic movies that I grew up on. And I would rank the 1980s Indiana Jones movies. Last Crusade, number 1. It is the best Indiana Jones movie. Second position, I would say, is Raiders of the Lost Ark. Third is Temple of Doom. If you disagree with that rating, you are wrong. And here is a stat that is going to blow many of your minds, and you can go look it up, and I am right. Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is actually a prequel, not a sequel, a prequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark. No one believes it. Go look at the dates on the movies. Indiana Jones, even though Raiders of the Lost Ark was made before Temple of Doom is a prequel that is set before Raiders of the Lost Ark. Okay. What's my analogy here? How did I get into a dissertation on the Indiana Jones movies for all of you? There is a scene in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, which I saw 8 times in the theater in like 1986. Adam, look up what year that movie was released. Every one of my family members took me to go see this movie. 8 times in the theater. It's the most times I've ever seen any movie in the theater. It was my favorite movie when I was a kid. Indiana Jones Temple of Doom, there is a scene when Short Round runs up, spoiler alert, to Indiana Jones, who has drank the serum of the evil Indian priest villain in the film, and he is about to put his lovely blonde-haired love interest to death in the pit of fire. Short Round comes running up to Indy, and he stabs him right in the chest, the lower abdomen area, burns him, and it's suddenly Indiana Jones wakes up, and he comes out of his trance, and he's aware of what was going on, and he leaves behind the cult, and he helps to lead everyone to, spoiler alert, safety. Temple of Doom, 1984. 5-year-old Clay Travis, in the summer of 1984, right in the middle of Ronald Reagan's re-election campaign. I don't remember much of the presidential cycle. I was going 5 years old, Temple of Doom, everybody took me. Okay. So, and by the way, it is a prequel. You can look it up. How does that tie in? Why has MSNBC's viewership collapsed? Why has CNN's viewership collapsed? People are having a moment like Indiana Jones where they have been shocked into recognition of what is going on around them and how much of a trance that they have been in. Imagine if you were a CNN or MSNBC viewer. Think about just this year what you would have been told. You would have been told, oh, Donald Trump is going to stand trial in South Florida, in New York City, in Atlanta, and in Washington, D.C., and his arguments about presidential powers and presidential prerogative are bunk. There is nothing to them. Joe Biden is sharp as a tack. Anybody sharing videos of Joe Biden, this is what they were saying up to the debate in June. Anybody sharing videos of Joe Biden, like yours truly, that suggested Joe Biden's mental or physical capacity has declined was actually sharing cheap fakes. Remember, they called these videos cheap fakes. Karine Jean-Pierre tried to come out. Hunter Biden had done nothing wrong, and there was a decent chance that he was going to be found not guilty if he ever stood charge at all. Joe Biden would never pardon his son, and that was a sign of how committed to equal justice under the law Democrats were, because they would never, ever get involved in arguing that a Justice Department proceeding was in any way political in nature. And anybody who argued that Joe Biden was anything other than the sharpest version of himself and that he would ever in any way pardon Hunter Biden was lying to you. That was misinformation. That was disinformation. And oh, by the way, actually the economy was stronger than it had ever been. And that if you were saying that your pocketbook didn't have as much money as it used to, you were just not understanding how the economy worked. If you had an issue with skyrocketing mortgage rates that had made it impossible for you to afford a new home, if you had an issue with your grocery or fast food costing 30, 40% more than it used to, that was in your head, and in reality, you didn't know how good you had it. And then on June 27th, Joe Biden went out and you watched him in the debate, and a lot of people said, wait a minute, he's actually not sharp at all. And people like me who had said there's no way that he's going to be able to run, oh, maybe we weren't just spreading disinformation and misinformation. He is physically and mentally not up to this job. And then suddenly everybody who had told you that Kamala Harris was the least popular vice president ever got behind Kamala Harris and said, actually, she's an amazing presidential candidate. It's brat summer. She's dominating. All of this is fantastic in terms of her campaign. Joy Reid said she ran a flawless campaign. How do we know that she ran a flawless campaign? Because even Queen Latifah endorsed her. And Queen Latifah never endorses anybody. And oh, by the way, that joke that got made at the Trump rally, Puerto Ricans aren't going to show up and vote for Trump. And oh, by the way, when Trump said, hey, I'm opposed to war, and if anybody who is advocating for war had to actually stand and face actual muskets, actual rifles, they'd be a lot less likely to do it. Oh, that's Trump advocating firing squads. All that was told to you. Kamala Harris running a uniquely popular campaign. She's winning all of the battleground states. She's poised to win an electoral landslide. All of that was told to you. And then Joe Biden dropped out. And then Kamala Harris came in and got her ass kicked worse than any Democrat going all the way back to 1988. Trump won an historic landslide victory, 312 electoral votes, all 7 battleground states. Kamala Harris, for the first time since 1932, didn't flip a single county from red to blue. You had to go all the way back to Herbert Hoover. All 50 states voted more Republican. It was a red tsunami. And then Joe Biden came out and said, yeah, I'm going to pardon my son for 10 full years. A lot of people out there are finally done with MSNBC and CNN because over time, you weigh whether you trust and believe people like me who talk to you every day. I don't get everything right. But if you listen to me and or watch me, over time, you can weigh whether my opinions have tended to be more right or whether they've tended to be more wrong. And also whether I'm honest with you when I get things right and whether I'm honest with you when I get things wrong. And look, I don't know that anybody has ever done this more in the media than me. I did sports gambling daily for 4 years. The day after every bet, we would come and tally it on television. And you could see in real time, oh, Clay got that bet right. Oh, Clay got that bet wrong. Oh, Clay's a genius. Oh, Clay's a moron. You could all react. Right about everything on COVID from about May or June 2020 to now. Right about virtually everything in politics when it came to the 2024 election. Everything that I predicted to you actually ended up coming true. Now, in 2022, I was wrong. Talked about it. Red wave didn't happen. Happened in 2024. Not just a red wave, a red tsunami. And so, MSNBC has been wrong about everything. CNN has been wrong about everything. It is a moment where suddenly, like in the Temple of Doom, people are waking up. And they're becoming aware that they can't trust those networks. And all that matters in this era is authenticity. Smart, original, funny, authentic. If you can do those four things, you win. It's the brand. It's what matters. Everything else is garbage. We live in an era now, truth be told, where all that matters is brand. All that matters. There has never been more places where you can go get news than right now. There's never been more places with more opinion available on a public level than right now. All that matters is, do you trust the brand delivering the news to you? And do you find them to be smart, original, funny, and authentic such that you want to spend your time with them? MSNBC and CNN are found now, I believe, severely wanting. 38,000 viewers, 25 to 54, is unheard of bad for primetime programming. I legitimately think their business is over. I don't know how they recover from this. Comcast kind of thinks it because they're spinning off these businesses elsewhere. But if you told me right now, Clay, would you rather own CNN or MSNBC both or YouTube? I would rather own YouTube. Not even a difficult call. If you told me, Clay, would you rather own CNN or Rumble? I think I'd rather own Rumble. If you told me, Clay, would you rather own MSNBC or Rumble? I think I'd rather own Rumble. They're in trouble. This top-down universe is collapsing. And what I have told you is almost no one who is on MSNBC or CNN daily actually has a fan base at all. That is, I don't know that they could make livings. Maybe Rachel Maddow could. I don't know that there are enough people who could pay them and would be willing to pay them anywhere near the dollar figure that they make now. Like, Rachel Maddow can't make $25 million. She works one day a week. There's no way she's getting $25 million from someone out there to do media if MSNBC wasn't paying her that. There are a lot of people who could. Tucker Carlson's got a big audience. I think if I decided that I was going to go out on my own, I think all of you would follow me. The top-down model is broken, and it's just a matter of how long it takes to completely vanish. There are a lot younger people than me who are way bigger stars than me who have never been on anything other than TikTok, Instagram, or YouTube. That's the reality. They don't need a television network. They don't even need any media relationship at all with the larger existing mainstream traditional media. I don't even think we can call them mainstream anymore. I think we can call them legacy media, but I don't think they have much value. So it is something to think about going forward. I said I was going to talk about this yesterday, and I did want to make sure that I mentioned it today. Hunter Biden's impeachment. Hunter Biden should be Joe Biden impeached. Hunter Biden's pardon. It is, for me, a watershed moment. It was obvious that this was going to happen. I don't have any issue with Joe Biden deciding to pardon his son. I told you guys last year, if I were president of the United States and one of my sons was facing time in jail, in prison, for a drug or gun-related charge, I would pardon them. I'm not saying that's what a politician should do. I'm saying that's what I would do as a dad. I also understand there's a strong argument. Carol Markowitz made this, writer at the New York Post, part of the Clay and Buck podcast network. She said the reason why Hunter Biden ended up in the position he was in, where his dad needed to pardon him, is because he's lived his entire life without having to deal with the consequences of his own actions. I think that's probably true. In other words, in trying to protect him, Joe Biden has actually done a disservice to his son, because what he's taught him is, because of who your daddy is, you never have to be responsible for the own choices that you make. And I think about that now as a dad, because I've got a 16, a 14, a 10-year-old. I want them to be completely independent. I want them to succeed or fail on their own merits, as every child has to do in America, not because they happen to have a rich dad who works in media. I worry about that a little bit, truth be told, with all of you. My kids have a different life experience than most kids have. And so how do I make sure that they're tough enough and brave enough and fearless enough to go out on their own, as opposed to relying on having a dad who has some measure of wealth and some measure of notoriety, which can help them to end up in a position where they get advantages that other kids don't. They are privileged on a level that I was not, on a level that most kids are not, on a level that Hunter Biden was. And so it's important to acknowledge what happened here. Joe Biden always knew that he was going to pardon Hunter Biden. The reason why he didn't just say that, or just decline to answer, why he in fact lied to everyone, was because they believed there were two primary arguments he was going to make as part of his presidential re-election bid against Donald Trump. One was that Trump was a unique threat to democracy, and that he would stand up for the justice system and the equal application of the law. The other was abortion. These were the two grounding principles that were going to get Joe Biden reelected. We saw abortion didn't work. And I think Biden kind of knew it wasn't going to work. Even though Kamala Harris spent $1 billion on it, it didn't work. The other was democracy. And he knew if he said he was going to pardon Hunter, that it would hurt him in the election, because a lot of people like me and many others would say, how can you claim no one's above the law when your son is clearly above the law? And Biden tried to argue, oh, my son was unfairly treated. BS. Hunter Biden should be in prison for years and years for the tax evasion he committed and for the lobbying of foreign interests that he committed. He violated probably 100 laws or more. I'm not even kidding about that. He could have and should have been prosecuted long before now. He shouldn't have gotten a 10-year pardon window where basically he can commit any crime that he wants with no consequences. But that is the world in which we live, where Democrats, if their daddies are famous enough, never have to pay the consequences for their actions. Far from Hunter being targeted because of who his dad was, Hunter was able to profit off of Joe Biden without any consequences for all of his crimes. And this is not a drug-related issue. Hunter would have probably made more money and done more illegal acts if he hadn't been a drug addict. Because you don't set up all those LLCs and you don't roll those millions of dollars into the Biden crime family syndicate without intent. And I don't believe that had anything to do with drugs, because Hunter Biden was doing it before Beau Biden died. I think what happened, if you really want me to know, was when Barack Obama said, I'm picking Hillary Clinton as my successor, Joe Biden thought his political career was over, and he told his family, it's time to make as much money as we can while we can. And that was when the money spigot got turned on, and they never thought that they would have to deal with the consequences of this, because they never expected for Trump to win. They thought Hillary would win. Then they thought Hillary would run for re-election, and Biden would be too old, which he was, to run in 2020, but the only reason he ran then was because, again, Hillary lost and Trump was in office. And this is important. The only person who actually bore consequences for all of the Biden crime family, Donald Trump. He got impeached for asking Zelensky before Russia invaded Ukraine, hey, maybe we should look into all of the Biden crime family shenanigans associated with Ukraine, which was a perfectly legitimate and normal question to be asking, which is why Trump asked it and why they impeached him for asking it. So my thoughts are, I'm not surprised that Hunter Biden did it. It just proves what total and complete hypocrites Democrats have been for arguing no one is above the law. They will do whatever they can with the power when they have it. I think the consequence of this is beyond a shadow of a doubt. Trump should pardon every single January 6th prisoner and put that behind us once and for all. And one final thought today before I roll out and go tape our gambling special, I got to tell you, who's advising Joe Biden? If he had wanted to actually make a strong position here, he should have pardoned Donald Trump as well at the same time that he pardoned Hunter, because then he could legitimately argue the American public has spoken. They have voted for Donald Trump to be president of the United States. I respect their decision. It's time to put the lawfare behind us. Now, Biden started it all. It would still be a garbage position, and it would still be one that uniquely benefits him because, remember, he's pardoning Hunter not to help Hunter, but to protect himself and his family of all the crimes that they committed. But he could at least have argued then, I'm turning the page, as Kamala Harris would say, in both directions. We're ending this era of lawfare. Trump is cleared. My son is cleared. I'm going to pardon myself and everybody. No charges being brought anywhere in the political stratosphere. It would have at least had the signature, the statement, the foundational element of standing on principle over standing on blatant politics. Instead of just privileging himself, he would have been arguing that the pardon privilege extended across the political spectrum. But he didn't make that decision because Joe Biden, at his essence, has always been a profoundly selfish person who is making awful decisions, by and large, for the American people. I am Clay Travis. I am headed to Israel. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for watching and listening to OutKick the show. I will be back with you on December the 16th. I'm sure we'll be posting a lot of videos from Israel. You can follow me at Clay Travis. You can follow the OutKick accounts. I'm on Instagram. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Twitter. I'm everywhere. I'm sure we'll post some of the videos there. I look forward to going to Israel. Never been there before. Up next now, we are going to tape the Fade with me and Kelly Stewart, getting you ready for another weekend of college football and NFL action. Thank all of you. As always, DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I am Clay Travis, and this has been OutKick the show.